Hello, now we want to talk about the second part of chapter 5, and here we talk about the cost function. So what we assume here is that in the case of the cost function, that is a mathematical relationship that relates the cost to the cost minimizing output. And in the short run, the fixed cost do not change. Okay, we want to look at the sunk cost and the short run variable cost. So basically here the short run variable cost is given by VCQ. So what we assume here is that the total cost, when you look at the total cost, that is given by the fixed cost plus the variable cost, which changes with the quantity produced. Now what about the long run cost? All costs are variable and no fixed cost. That's what we assume here. Okay, so if you look at the short run cost in auction, what we find is that we have the variable costs are below and they increase with the output, while the total cost is given by the fixed cost plus the variable cost. So what we assume here is that the fixed costs are going to be the same. Okay, that does not change, but the variable cost change with the output. Now what about the average cost? The average fixed cost is given by the fixed cost divided by the quantity, and the average variable cost is the variable cost divided by the quantity. So the average total cost is given by the cost as the certain quantity divided by the quantity, and the marginal cost is the change in the cost with a given change in the quantity. So let's look at the fixed and the sunk cost. The fixed cost does not change with the output. And what is a sunk cost? A cost that is forever lost after it has been paid. So as an example, let's say you look at South Coast Hospital. You invested quite a bit of money on an EMR. Now you are changing it for a new EMR. So the new EMR again requires a substantial investment. Now sometimes we assume what happens, do we need to consider the amount we spend for the old EMR when we analyze the new EMR, when we make a choice regarding the new EMR? And what we are saying here is that we should not ever consider that. So that is irrelevant. So a decision maker should ignore the sunk cost to maximize profits or to minimize losses. So as an example, right now the price of oil has gone down substantially. So when compared to last year, it's gone down substantially, and it has become a little bit problematic for US corporations who have spent a lot of money on new technologies for drilling oil. Now the question here is that at a price of $30 per oil, should they be including the money they have spent on exploration or for buying machinery and so on? Now what we are saying here is that we should ignore that. That cost has been spent, and in this case you're not going to get it back, whatever is the decision. So that is why you should ignore that. Okay. Now long run cost. In the long run, all costs are variable since a manager is free to adjust level of all inputs. Now what is a long run average cost curve? A curve that defines the minimum average cost of producing alternate level of output, allowing for optimal selection of both fixed and variable factors of production. So what do you mean by economies of scale? People always talk about that. So basically what is meant by the economies of scale is that we are saying that as we produce more, the average cost curve is going to go down. So the portion of the long run average cost curve where long run average cost decline as the output increases. So where there is a benefit to increasing the output, and the reason being that you have spent a certain amount of money, so that is the capital investment, and the capital can sustain a certain output. So having a lower output is not helping you, but having the maximum output consistent with that amount of capital invested, that will help you. So that is what is meant by the economies of scale. Now what is the diseconomies of scale? Portion of the long run average cost curve where long run average cost increase as the output increase. So basically what that means is that perhaps we are producing more than what is optimal given our limited capital. So here we are actually losing money by producing more. Now constant returns to scale basically means that as we increase the output, there is no effect on the cost. So these are the examples of that. the economies of scale basically tells you that as you increase the quantity, the long run average cost is going down. Here it's fixed, and after that what we are saying is that the long run average costs are increasing. And what we have is constant return to scale in action. So in this case, what we are saying is that output has no effect on the overall cost. Now what we see now is we have what is referred to as a multiple output cost function. And what is that? What we are saying is that if we have two outputs which are different, in this case producing both together actually benefits us. And what we see here is that the cost of producing both together is actually less than the cost of producing each one individually. So as an example, let's say you are South Coast Hospital. Now you have a regular hospital where you admit patients. You also have an emergency room. And what we are saying is that the benefit of having both together is that you have perhaps economies of scope, and you're actually bringing down your cost rather than have each one separately. So there, having the ER separate from the hospital would actually increase your cost. That's one example of that. What is cost complementarity? Exists when the marginal cost of producing one type of output decreases when the output of another good is increased. So again, when you compare, having an having a ER along with a regular hospital is that when the ER input is increasing, when you have more patients coming to the ER, it can also help you as far as the hospital is concerned, because you might be admitting more patients and you're going to fill up more beds. And in this case, what we find is that that cost might actually go down by having a good ER. Okay, so here what we see here is that the marginal cost divided to delta quantity is less than 0. Okay. So as you increase the ER output, it will actually help you perhaps bring down the marginal cost of the operating the hospital, the regular functions of the hospital. So let's look at this example here. Multiple output cost function in action. Suppose a firm produces two goods and has cost function given by C is given by 100 minus 0.5 Q1 Q2 plus Q1 squared plus Q2 squared. If the firm plans to produce 4 units of Q1 and 6 units of Q2, does this cost function exhibit cost complementarities? So when we say we have cost complementarities, we say that when the marginal cost of delta MC1 to the delta Q2 is less than 0. So basically here we are saying that as we increase the output of the second product, it's going to bring down our marginal cost. Now in this case, what happens is that is given by delta MC1 to delta Q2 is given by 2Q2 minus 0.5 Q1. So we are taking the derivative of this function with reference to delta Q2, and here what we find is that is actually helping us, isn't it? Because we find that as we increase the output of Q2, it actually helps us bring down the cost, okay? Because A is negative minus 0.5 is less than 0. Now, does this cost function exhibit economies of scope? So what do we do there? When you look at the economies of scope, that is given by 100 minus 0.5 times Q1 Q2, and that is greater than 0. So that is the reason why we say that is exhibiting the economies of scope. Okay. So what is the conclusion here? Basically what we want to say here is that to maximize the profits or to minimize the cost, manager must use input such that the value of the marginal product for each input reflects the price the firm must pay to employ the unit. And the marginal optimal mix of inputs is achieved when the marginal rate of technical substitution is given by W by R. So W is the wage rate and R is the rental rate. And basically here what we are saying is that for any business, it's very important to have a cost function, because that is the foundation for helping to determine profit maximizing behavior that helps it obtain that. So if your business, you have to understand what is your cost function, and based upon that you have to make sure what is the optimal level of output in terms of and what is the optimal employment of labor, and what should be the optimal employment of the capital.